On what's brewing, Recur Club, a financing platform, has bagged $30 million in its seed funding round, which was a combination of equity and debt. InfoEdge Ventures and Village Global have invested $2 million in equity of the parent company. The balance of $28 million is raised in debt from Aditya Birla Finance, GRO CAPITAL, Incred Financial Services, and a few others. To talk more about the company and its future growth plans, we are now joined by founders and co-CEOs Abhinav Sherwal and Eklavya Gupta, and my colleague Arundhati. Welcome to the show, Abhinav and Eklavya.
Hey,
now,
hi,
before we delve into the fundraise, Abhinav, talk to us about Recur Club. What is it that the company does? What kind of services you offer, and what's the problem you're trying to solve?
Sure. So Recur Club was founded as a founder-friendly platform where we identified that there's a clear gap in the market, right? Where only 2% of the companies get equity capital, right? And that's why we identified an opportunity to create a new kind of financing platform, which is called Recur Club. So what we do essentially is an all-new revolutionary kind of financing, which is called subscription-based financing, right? So for any companies which have predictable recurring revenue from their existing customers, it can be in form of contracts, it can be in form of subscriptions. What they can come to us, and we will give them up to 12 months of their future recurring revenue of the customers upfront. So in a nutshell, very quick example. So say if Netflix come to us, they have people paying 500 rupees per month, and they are expected to get 6,000 over the next 12 months. They can come to us and they can get 90% of their 6,000, 54 up to 5,400 rupees upfront instantly. And they can spend on marketing, acquire their customers, they can grow faster. So essentially we are bridging this kind of a cash flow gap, which comes in this recurring revenue businesses, which unlocks a new asset class for our institutional investors on the platform.
All right. So now, Eklavya, you've raised $30 million in seed funding round, which was a mix of equity and debt from some of the big investors. Now, how do you plan to deploy the fresh capital? Also explain the need to raise debt and equity.
Absolutely. So we have raised, as you rightly said, right, like a mix of debt and equity. Equity capital would be primarily used, for product enhancement, hiring, sales and engineering talent, and for a better user experience, so that we can fine-tune our data science and AI-driven underwriting models, which play a very, very integral role, right, in our financial model. On the debt side, how the capital will be used will be, so just extrapolating what Abhinav was saying, right? We being a fintech platform, we partner with institutional investors on one side, right, which are the marquee investors that you mentioned about, and then there are companies on the other side. So to bolster platform liquidity, we need some amount of debt capital, that can be given to these companies, which is like to purchase the recurring revenue streams of these companies. So I think debt capital will be primarily used for that, and equity will be to strengthen our team and product enhancement so that we can scale this year in India and probably next year evaluate geographical expansions.
All right, so scaling in India being the priority and then geographical expansion. Abhinav, Arundhati here. Let's now talk about the business. So Recur Club works with companies with predictable annual revenues of at least $100,000. You help these companies trade their future customer revenue at a small discount to get capital upfront within 48 hours. Can you take us through this model and how this works?
Sure. So like we say, we are more like do-it-yourself financing. Right. So whenever, say, any companies can just simply log on to recurclub.com and they can connect their financial and their bank statements and everything with the product on the go themselves. And what we do is with our AI model and our machine learning algorithms, we can within around 30 minutes unlock a trading limit. What it essentially means is that the company startup or the company, they can actually see the amount of funding they can get by trading contracts on the platform. And once this limit is unlocked, that the platform itself is completely flexible and hassle-free. So whenever a founder or a company needs capital, they can simply choose their asset, which is their customer, and just trade it on the go and get that capital. And like the previous example I told you, like they can get up to 90% of their future revenue on a click of a button.
Absolutely. Eklavya, if I could come to you, recurring revenue companies, which is a multi-trillion-dollar market, has highly predictable cash flows, with the only problem being lagging revenues versus their CAC spends. What were the challenges you faced in bridging this gap?
Absolutely, right. See, traditionally, how people used to bridge this gap till date was either equity financing or discounting their annual contracts or subscriptions to very high percentage, right? What we have enabled through our platform is effectively very simply to understand, right? Like the companies can come and it's through our platform, it's simply that their customers are paying them upfront. It's very similar to that, because what Recur Club is unlocking is effectively their cash inflows, which are supposed to come in the next, say, 12 months, because it's a subscription business, which they'll get over month on month. They get that money today to deploy in their predictable recurring expenses, right? Using equity capital or discounting revenues at a high percentage does not make, proper financial sense for these kinds of predictable expenses. And hence we were able to, unlock this new asset class, where both the companies are able to get capital upfront using their customers and deploy it, in customer acquisition cost, marketing cost, etc., which they were erstwhile doing it with either equity capital or their customers themselves.
All right, so effectively unlocking their cash inflow. Now, Abhinav, tell us, currently over 400 companies with a tradable subscription value of $120 million are listed on your platform. So how do you plan on increasing this number? What's the target you've set for yourself? Also, take us through some of the portfolio companies and which sectors do you focus mostly on?
Sure. So like you rightly mentioned, so we are growing exponentially. So we have seen around 200% increase month over month for the last quarter itself. And that has been great, right? The type of acceptance which we are getting truly shows the need in the market. Right. So idea is definitely to invest a lot in technology and using the right data science so that we can quicken this process. But we would also like to highlight the fact that Recur Club, and why we call it club, is essentially much more than financing, because we operate with a singular obsession of helping founders. And we are creating Recur Club as truly a growth platform for companies, right? And we look forward to helping them not just with capital, but also the right advisory, the right partnerships, and the right ecosystem to support their growth. And that's why we believe that essentially it's a great club for founders. And by the year end, we are targeting to be helping more than 2,000 companies with a ARR of around $1 billion.